Get out. People like you don't belong here. That's the welcome a dusty man in a reflective vest gets the moment he steps into the North Star showroom. No one asks where he came from. No one wonders why he looks exhausted. They just stare at the dirt on his clothes, then laugh. Clyde raises his phone, whispering, "Guys, watch this." A broke construction guy thinks he can buy a luxury car. Reddington gives him a slow, dismissive look. "Sir, these cars aren't for browsing." But the man doesn't back away. He quietly sets down his hard hat, steady and calm. Then he reaches into his pocket, pulls out a worn ID card, and for the first time, we learn his name, Jackson Crow, and what he's about to say. No one in the room is ready for it. "Are you?" Back in his old brick-walled office, Jackson sat in front of a stack of faded letters. Real paper, not emails. The first one from an older man read shakily, "I've never felt so small. Not in a dealership that carries your name." Another from a truck driver. "I came in after a long shift. They told me I wasn't rich enough to look at a new model." Jackson paused, reread the lines. "Choose your customers. Don't waste time on people who look poor." The words clung to him like grease that wouldn't wash off. He lifted his eyes toward an old photo of his father. Callous hands, a mechanic smile, and something inside him tightened. If this was what North Star had become, then something had already gone terribly wrong. The next morning, Jackson opened his closet and pushed his suits aside. His hand stopped on a faded safety vest, his father's, dusty, stiff at the seams. He lifted it, hesitated a second, then slipped it on. In the mirror, the CEO was gone. What stared back was a tired, middle-aged man with work-worn hands and a quiet resolve forming behind his eyes. "If they only respect people who look wealthy," he muttered, "then they don't deserve the name on that building." He placed a fake road worker ID in his front pocket. The real CEO badge. He tucked it deep in the other, a slow breath. Then he stepped outside. And that morning, a construction worker walked toward North Star Motors, carrying a truth that could rewrite someone's life. The moment Jackson pushed open the glass door, the street noise faded, replaced by that steady hum of dealership air conditioning. He stepped in, dusty vest, hard hat in his hand, leaving faint dirt marks on the shiny tile. A couple heads lifted. Their eyes crawled over in the way someone checked a rusted old pickup at an auction. Slow, dismissive. Miss Reddington glanced up, frowned, then subtly angled her screen as if hiding her irritation behind it. Jackson offered a small, polite smile. "Ma'am, I'm hoping to look at a car." And just like that, one simple greeting. The room shifted. The tension, the judgment, all starting to gather like a storm just beginning to form. She didn't answer right away. For a second, Jackson wondered if she didn't hear him, but no. Her eyes stayed glued to her monitor, like his voice was background noise she was trying to tune out. Then she finally lifted her gaze. Not to his face, but to the dust on his vest, the scuffed boots, the hard hat. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her tone scraping the air like a chair dragged across tile. Jackson shook his head gently. "No, ma'am. I just want to see that blue sedan. When I was a kid, she cut him off. That model's expensive. You might want to check the used section instead." A small sentence, but it hit with the weight of "you don't belong here." And that was only the beginning. Jackson pointed gently toward the deep blue sedan, the one that reminded him of childhood, of wanting something just once without being judged for it. Miss Reddington let out a long, tired sigh, turned her back, and grabbed a brochure with 2 fingers like it inconvenienced her just to touch it. Instead of handing it over, she dropped it on the counter. It slid to the edge. Stopped there, trembling slightly like a piece of trash someone forgot to sweep away. "You can check the price first," she said. "Save our time." An older man nearby frowned. Just a small crease between his brows, but it said everything. He'd seen this kind of dismissal before, maybe too many times, and Jackson felt the shift. A quiet sting that wasn't anger yet, but was getting there. Mr. Doyle noticed a brochure scene, and that half-smile slid across his face. The kind people wear when they think they already know your whole story. He gave Jackson a quick once-over, then glanced at the sedan and let out a short laugh. "That model's usually paid in full," he said. "Not many folks need bank approval." The pause before bank approval hung in the air like he'd just drawn a line between two worlds. Jackson tried to steady the moment. I just wanted a little information, sir. But Doyle turned to Reddington, speaking loud enough for others to hear. Guy like him? Probably better off with something that's already got 50,000 M on it. And just like that, the disrespect wasn't subtle anymore. It was out in the open, wearing a smile. The older man from earlier was still standing a few steps away, fingers tightening around the brim of his faded baseball cap. He watched Jackson quietly, and for a moment something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe the kind that comes when you see someone living a moment you lived once in some bank or office where your clothes spoke louder than your words. He let out a soft breath, almost a sigh. Didn't say a thing. Didn't need to. Jackson glanced over, offered a small smile, gentle, apologetic, almost like, I know. I get it. Doyle turned away, brushing it all off as if the humiliation he just added to wasn't anything more than a passing joke in a slow workday. And the room, it felt a little heavier, like empathy was trying to surface, but pride kept pushing it back down. Then came Miss Tabor, tablet in hand, smile on her lips, but her eyes cold in a way Jackson felt before he understood it. She didn't greet him, just leaned toward her coworkers and said, not even whispering, does he even have a credit file, or is he just here to browse? Jackson swallowed, kept his voice steady. What if I'd like to test drive it? Oh, test drives. Her laugh was soft but sharp. Those are for qualified buyers. Got a bank statement, pre-approval letter. Each question was like a tiny shove toward the door. Then she dropped a line that cut deeper than she probably realized. This isn't a place for free dreaming. A simple sentence, but it pierced the moment, stripping the little dignity he'd been holding on to. And somewhere inside him, something shifted quietly but unmistakably. That's when Clyde leaned back against the counter, casual like he'd seen this 100 times, and pulled out his phone. The screen lit up and he whispered, almost excited, Guys, look at this. A construction worker trying to buy a luxury car. He angled the camera just enough to catch Jackson standing there, focus on the blue sedan, completely unaware he was becoming entertainment for someone's feed. Clyde chuckled under his breath as he typed the caption, When your dreams cost more than your wallet. One coworker glanced over, then another, a suppressed laugh here, a smirk there, and suddenly it wasn't just poor service anymore. It was public mockery broadcasted, amplified, turning a man's quiet moment into a punchline. Jackson didn't know it yet, but the whole room was beginning to choose sides. Ms. Reddington noticed Clyde's phone, saw the little red live icon, and instead of stopping him, she smiled. A tiny knowing smile like the cruelty had become routine. She turned back to Jackson. If you're serious, she said, do you have a bank statement? Jackson paused, not because he didn't have one, but because of how she said it, as if he needed to prove he deserved to stand inside the building at all. I'm just trying to learn about the car today, he replied, steady, respectful. Well, she said, her voice sharpening, you might want to do that somewhere else. Somewhere else? Like he was clutter and inconvenience, and with that one sentence, the line was crossed. From subtle disrespect to openly pushing him out, the air tightened. Something inside Jackson did, too. Then came the sound. Sharp, clipped footsteps echoing across the showroom floor. Mr. Halcom, the manager, emerged from his glass office with that look people get when they're convinced they're about to fix something or someone. He scanned Jackson up and down, then turned to his staff. Reddington summarized what happened, though she framed it in a way that made Jackson seem like the one slowing business down. Halcom nodded once like he'd already decided the verdict and walked right up to Jackson, closer than anyone needed to be. This is a high-end dealership, he said. If you're not planning to buy, you're disrupting our work. And there it was. Authority used not to lead, but to dismiss. A man meant to uphold standards, lowering them in every word. Something about that hit deeper than the earlier insults, because now it wasn't just rude behavior. It was policy. Jackson kept his voice calm. I only asked about the price and the financing options. Simple, reasonable, nothing out of line. But Halcom didn't soften. I told you, he said, You're not our target customer. Behind him, Clyde muttered just loud enough. He doesn't even look like someone who should walk through the door. Jackson felt the words land quietly cruel. But before he could answer, Halcom leaned in slightly and delivered the final push. If you don't leave now, I'll have security assist you. Security? As if Jackson were a threat instead of a man asking about a car. A small smirk ghosted across Doyle's face like the humiliation had become a team sport. And in that moment, the room's temperature shifted again. This wasn't harmless arrogance anymore. It was an attack meant to shrink him down until he disappeared. But Jackson didn't move. Not yet. While Jackson stayed quiet, trying to steady the heat rising in his chest, Halcom leaned toward his staff. Low voice, but not low enough. I've said it before, he murmured. Don't waste time on people who don't look like they have money. The words drifted out into the showroom like fumes from old gasoline. Sharp, sour, impossible to ignore. Doyle nodded without hesitation. Clyde let out a quick laugh. Tabor didn't say anything. But silence is its own kind of agreement. Woman nearby clutched her purse a little tighter, frowning. She'd heard it. Everyone had. Jackson lifted his head slowly, eyes narrowing just a bit. Not angry yet, but that quiet, dangerous focus before someone decides they've had enough. And the room felt different now. Not just rude, rotten. In the corner, intern Mills was stacking paperwork, trying to look busy, trying not to stare, but failing. He watched the whole scene, shoulders tensing like he wished he were anywhere else. Finally, he walked over hesitant steps, but honest ones. If you'd like, he whispered, I can explain a few things about that model. Reddington shot him a sharp look. Mills, you have other tasks. He froze for a second, then quietly turned back to Jackson. I'm sorry for the way they're speaking to you, he said, voice barely above a breath. Just that simple, unpolished kindness. But in a room full of cold smirks and whispered judgment, it landed like a warm light breaking through a heavy door. Jackson's expression softened, only for a moment, but real. And that tiny shift, it hinted that the story wasn't over. Not even close. Clyde moved in closer this time. No attempt to hide the phone or the grin. Look, everyone, he said loudly. Guy wants a dream sedan, but won't even show a bank statement. The words sliced through the room. Reddington let out a laugh, hand over her mouth, but the delight in her eyes wasn't covered at all. Halcom didn't stop it. He just folded his arms, watching like the whole thing was some midday entertainment. Jackson stood in the center of it, still, steady, quiet. His eyes moved slowly from face to face, almost studying each reaction, each smirk, each look away. No anger yet, just that stillness a person slips into right before something inside them decides enough. And the room could feel it, even if they didn't understand it yet. Jackson finally spoke calm, steady. So, to look at a car here, someone has to prove they're wealthy first. Halcom didn't hesitate. We have a brand to protect. We can't let just anyone walk in without the means to buy. Just anyone. The phrase hung there, heavy, almost echoing. A couple of nearby customers shifted uncomfortably, as if the insult brushed against them, too. But none of the staff flinched. Not Doyle with his smirk, not Clyde, not even Reddington. The air thickened, quiet, suffocating. Jackson breathed in slowly like he'd been setting bricks in a wall, and had finally laid the last one. A truth was forming, solid, undeniable. If this was how they treated someone they thought was beneath them, then this place needed more than a reminder. It needed a reckoning. For a moment, Jackson let the noise of the showroom fade. The smirks, the whispers, even Halcom's arrogance. His eyes drifted to the North Star motor sign hanging at the back wall, bold letters he'd once been proud of. Now they felt heavier, almost accusing. He thought of the complaint letters on his desk, thought of long-haul drivers, mechanics, road crews, the people who built the roads everyone else drove on. His father's hands, calloused, cracked, honest. If he stayed silent, even for one more minute, this place would become exactly what those letters described. He set his hard hat down on a nearby chair. Then slowly, almost too slowly, his hand slipped into his pocket. To them it looked like defeat, like he was about to walk out, but inside something had snapped into place. Jackson drew his hand back out. Fingers closed around something small. When he opened them, a simple badge rested there, edges worn, laminate, slightly dulled, the kind where only time and responsibility create. He lifted it, not high, not dramatic, just enough. The room stalled. On the card, Jackson Crowell, Chief Executive Officer, North Star Motors. Clyde's grin evaporated so fast it looked painful. His phone dipped, screen shaking because his hands suddenly weren't steady. Reddington's breath hitched. Tabor froze. And how come, who'd stood so close a moment ago, took half a step back as if the badge were some kind of spotlight exposing everything he just said. No one spoke because in that second every insult, every laugh, every rule they thought they could hide came crashing back at them. And Jackson, he hadn't even said a word yet. The room, once buzzing with chatter and quiet mockery, fell into a strange, heavy silence. Only the steady hum of the air conditioner filled the space. Steady, almost too steady. Jackson finally spoke slowly, each word landing like it had weight. "I've heard the complaints," he said. "Today I wanted to see if they were true." No one met his eyes. Not Doyle, not Reddington, not Tabor. Only intern Mills, standing small in the corner, looked back at him, steady, unafraid. Clyde fumbled with his phone, the live stream still open for a second before he shut it down, heart thumping at the thought of how far his words might have already traveled. "And how come?" He tried to talk, but his voice cracked. "Sir, you should have told us earlier," but Jackson didn't reply. His silence said everything. Jackson inhaled once, then repeated their own lines back to them. Quiet, deliberate. "You're in the wrong place. This isn't where people come to dream for free. Don't waste time on someone who doesn't look like they have money." Each sentence dropped like a hammer into the stillness. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He looked at each person when quoting their words. Doyle when he said the look's poor line. Reddington when he echoed her dismissal. Tabor when he recited her comment about free dreaming. Reddington's head lowered. Doyle swallowed hard. Tabor clutched her tablet like it could shield her. Only Mills stood upright, eyes soft but clear, watching the truth settle over the room. And for the first time all day, the staff finally felt what they'd done. Jackson turned to Halcom and held out his hand. "Your work phone," he said quietly. Halcom hesitated, but in a room that's silent, refusal wasn't an option. He handed it over. Jackson tapped through the forwarded chats he already knew were there. "Rule number 1, he read aloud. "Don't waste time on customers who look poor." A shiver went through the room, small but real. Then the next message, "Blue collar equals time waster." He let the words hang, heavy and cold, like someone had opened a door to winter. "This," Jackson asked, looking up, "is how you train each other." No one answered, because the system they built had just been shown to them in their own handwriting. Jackson let the phone fall silent in his hand before turning toward Reddington. "You're the first face people see when they walk in," he said. "And today that face told me I didn't belong here." She opened her mouth, maybe to explain, maybe to deny, but the words tangled before escaping. Effective immediately, Jackson continued calm but unshakable. "You are no longer employed at North Star Motors." A sharp breath came from somewhere in the back, someone stunned by how fast the world flipped. Reddington tried to speak again, but the moment had already moved past her. Her excuses, too small now, swallowed by the truth, laid bare in front of everyone, and justice finally had taken its first step. Jackson turned to Halcom first. "You're the manager," he said quietly. This culture didn't appear on its own. He repeated the man's own words back to him. The threat to call security. The line about not our target customer. Each phrase landed heavier than the last. "You're not fit to lead anyone here." Then his eyes shifted to Clyde. No anger, just disappointment that cut deeper. "You felt proud turning a person into a joke in front of hundreds, didn't you?" Clyde's face drained of color. "Your contract ends today," Jackson said. The room didn't cheer, but the silence felt like justice finally taking a breath. Jackson didn't fire Doyle or Tabor right away. He just asked almost too calmly, "How many people have you told they didn't belong here? That this place wasn't for their dreams?" Doyle's jaw tightened. He remembered moments, too many, where he'd laughed at someone who walked in wearing work boots. Tabor's eyes filled before she could look away. Maybe it was the first time she truly heard her own words echoed back at her. "I don't need the top sellers," Jackson said softly. "I need people who remember the person standing in front of them is a person." He gave them one last chance with a warning that left no room for pretending. It wasn't punishment. It was a mirror. Jackson called Mill's name, and the whole showroom turned. The intern stiffened, paper still in his hands, like he wasn't sure if he'd done something wrong. But Jackson's voice softened. "You apologized when you thought I was just a construction worker. No audience, no reward. That's when a person's character speaks the loudest." Mills blinked fast. Too fast, trying to keep his eyes from shining. "I just did what felt right," he whispered. Jackson nodded. "And that's why I want you in the full sales training program. I'll oversee it myself." A flush crept up Mill's neck, half shock, half gratitude. Kindness, finally, wasn't the quiet thing in the room. It was a thing being honored. Jackson moved back to the center of the room, letting the weight of everything settle before he spoke again. "From this day on," he said, "there will be no more choosing customers in this dealership." His voice wasn't loud, just steady, the kind that doesn't need volume to be heard. "Every person who walks through that door, whether they're in a suit or in work boots, deserves the same respect." He announced a new policy clearly. Any act of discrimination based on appearance will be grounds for immediate termination. Few customers standing nearby clapped softly. Relief, agreement, maybe even recognition from their own past experiences. And in that moment, the air felt cleaner, like the place was finally becoming what it should have been all along. When everything settled, the older man, the one who'd watched quietly from the start, walked over to Jackson. He held his cap in both hands like the memory he was about to share still weighed on him. "I was treated like that once," he said softly. "Only difference is, nobody stood up for me." Jackson took his hand and shook it firmly, almost grounding the moment. "You should have never had to go through that," he murmured. They both looked toward the deep blue sedan. Two men who'd spent lifetimes believing some dreams were meant for other people. Jackson nodded to the driver's seat. "Go on," he said quietly. Dreams shouldn't be stopped at the door. For a second, the room felt healed. That day didn't end with a sale. It ended with a shift, one big enough to change how a whole dealership breathed. Customers filtered out, whispering to each other. Stories spreading already. The worker who turned out to be the CEO, the staff who learned the hard way, the intern who stayed kind when no one was watching. People would take it home, tell it to their kids, their neighbors, the folks at church, and slowly the tale would ripple out of that small showroom and into the places where respect had been missing for far too long. Jackson glanced at the North Star sign on the wall. For the first time in years, it felt worthy of his father's name. Here's the thing. A worker humiliated in front of a whole room turned out to be the CEO. But ask yourself, what if he wasn't? What happens to the person with no title, no power, no badge to pull? Do they ever get an apology? Or do they just carry it quietly for the rest of their life? You don't need someone to flash a CEO card before you treat them right. Sometimes a dirty jacket is just a man who worked hard today. Sometimes worn boots belong to someone holding a whole family together. Who you choose to be shows in how you treat the person who has nothing to offer you. And if you heard yourself somewhere in this story on either side of it, today is a good day to change direction.